wildest one is religion.
Go on.
That they're tax-free.
Oh.
The amount of money
Impossible.
a guy like Joel Osteen is raking in tax-free. Does he have to pay any taxes?
So Joe Rogan recently had one of his buddies, his comedian friends, Neil Brennan, on his podcast a couple months ago, and they start talking about churches and them being tax exempt. Now, I'm a small church pastor, so I know a little bit about this topic. And Joe admittedly doesn't understand it, but he thinks it's wild that churches are tax exempt. Doesn't quite understand it. He talks about it, and I want to share this little clip and then share what I know about tax exempt and even denominations, because there's a lot of misconceptions about non-denominational and denominations and things like that. But let's listen to it, and then I'll comment on it.
The wildest one is religion.
Go on.
That they're tax-free.
Oh.
The amount of money
Impossible.
a guy like Joel Osteen is raking in tax-free. Does he have to pay any taxes? Does he have to personally pay taxes? How does that work?
See, he doesn't know right off the bat. He doesn't know if there's a personal taxes to salaries, to what a person makes, what a pastor makes, or somebody that's on staff at a nonprofit organization and specifically churches. So let's keep listening.
If
I actually have no idea.
Find out if that's true.
I believe that you're limited salary if your church is incorporated.
But having churches pay no taxes is wild.
But that speaks to stability, where it's like it's cahoots stability. It's like the Bill of Rights and the Ten Commandments. They're not exactly one-to-one, but it's all kind of there's no coincidence there. Where it's like everything that it's another wing of I used to refer to God as super cup. Like we can't be there, but you shall not steal. You shall not, even if there's no cameras, don't steal,
but
don't
the
murder,
taxes
don't.
Thing is nuts.
Well, and it's interesting that Brennan says that this idea that the government and the church, if the government can't be there, the church will be there. At least if I'm understanding it right. And the interesting thing is in the book of Acts, the early church, they met each other's needs. In other words, there wasn't any kind of government help. There wasn't any help from the outsiders. The church took care of themselves. So if there was somebody in the church that was in need, there was a single mom, there was a person out of work and hungry, sick, like all of the above, they would take care of themselves. And that was a beautiful thing about the early church. So it's interesting that he makes a correlation between government and church.
Because Scientology got it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they sued. They sued the federal government and they got tax-exempt status.
So, and this is something that I didn't know until I listened to this podcast, and I have to do some research and verify that, but it sounds like the Church of Scientology is also tax exempt, which is not under the umbrella of Christianity, it doesn't believe in the foundational beliefs that Christians believe in. And so that I don't really have a lot to say about it, but I didn't know that was the case. So let's just keep listening. It's almost over.
And, that's wild because the guy who wrote it. Just one specific guy who is he's the most prolific author in human history. Mm-hmm. You know that? He published more works of fiction, but not that. That was all real.
No. That's all real. You guys got to take the day off.
And they get no taxes. It's pretty wild. I mean, if you're like a small Lutheran church and you serve the community and you put on charities and do a bunch of great things and you're like a real asset to the community, there's a lot of those churches and they should be tax exempt.
All right, so it's interesting that he, and I love what he says at the end. Like if you're a small, and I don't know why he says Lutheran church, maybe Lutheran church is the only example that came to his mind, or maybe he knows a Lutheran pastor or whatnot. And I guess he, in a lot of ways, he was describing what I do, and a small church pastor. We don't have a lot of income. All our church is supported by really what those who are members of our church give and donate, whether that be tithes, whether that be their offerings, whatever that is, or if we're giving clothes to the community, them bringing in the clothes and us helping the community. And so there's different ways that we help. And I do have a salary from the church. It is limited. And I want to make one thing clear when it comes to churches being tax exempt, at least from what I understand. And this is how it works. We have tax exemption from supplies that we buy, building materials that we buy, things that we buy to help the community to give back. So if we're buying food to give to families, if we're buying supplies or materials to add or build construction type of programs at our work, if we're buying supplies to send somebody on a missions trip, all of those things. Now, there are no tax exemption when it comes to my salary. There are no tax exemptions when it comes to property tax, right? Like we pay property tax. There's no tax exemption when it comes to, like, I get this annual bill in the mail that is from the water company, and it's about the sewage and this annual sewage water gutter something or another that everybody has to pay because it's just upkeep in the city. And so that is an annual tax, that is an annual fee that we pay. And so it's something that he definitely has misconceptions about. Now, here's the thing that I want to drive home, and I want you to understand. A lot of people will say, when they say, "Hey, Joe, are you a pastor? Are you denomination or non-denominational?" Right? And it's as if a denomination, and you could ask anybody, as if a denomination is just the worst thing in the world, and non-denominational is the best thing in the world. And I think there are pros and cons about both. Like if you're part of a denomination that has a little bit too many rules or just a little bit craziness going on, then maybe that's not for you. But a denomination, let me make this clear, a denomination holds me accountable. I'm part of the Foursquare denomination, and I love Foursquare. They've always allowed me to be the pastor that I feel God has called me to be. They don't hold me back or tell me I have to do certain things the way I lead my church. But they do hold me accountable. And what I mean by that is that I will tithe back to the denomination, right? We will tithe whatever comes into our church as income. We'll tithe to the denomination back at 10%. And that will, in turn, they'll use that for missions work, and they'll use that for operational expenses. And obviously every organization has to operate, right? And they'll also, I have to report, our attendance, our giving, our income, like all of the above, right? And I like that because it holds me accountable as a denominational pastor. I am accountable, right? And then the denomination also provides things like men's retreats and annual conferences and support, care, all of the above. There's lots of things that they provide for me as a Foursquare pastor, whereby a non-denominational pastor or churches, at least some of the ones that I've experienced, kind of make up their own accountability, right? And so if there was anybody that might be paid too much, it might be one of those non-denominational guys. Come on, right? Wait, no, that's not the right one. That's the right one. Dropping bombs. Wrong button. But anyway, that's the difference, right? And so I would prefer to have accountability as a pastor versus not have accountability. I would prefer that somebody is checking in on me saying, "Hey, are you being accountable? Are you using your funds right? Are you helping people? Are you," and not in a controlling way, but in an accountability way, versus somebody who, again, perhaps is in a non-denominational church and they're taking a salary that's way too high, maybe taxing the people, if you will, not in a tax season way, but taxing them as in asking too much of them. I would rather have accountability. And anyways, all that to say is I hope this helps a little bit answer that question about church tax exempt status and how it works, right? So you tell me in the comments below. Maybe I missed something, got something wrong. Totally willing to dialogue with this. Hey, make sure you like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Trying to get to 1,000 as soon as possible. See you on the next one.